yeah, this is my first time at HotelSpaces, and I am not going to talk about hotels actually at all. So we're going to talk about, what are some trends that we're seeing and how others are really innovating that guest experience. So if you're not familiar with ChangeUp, we've just got a quick video that shows a little bit about who we are, what we do, how we think. So, and then I'm going to jump in because there's a lot to get through in 20 minutes.
Hold up. Thinkable, I see you. Thinkable, I see you. Say hallelujah. Amen. Say hallelujah. I've been loving you. I've been loving you. All the moment. Yeah, yeah.
As you can see, we work across a kind of wide array of industries, and I think what we're seeing, and I don't think this is going to be a surprise, is that consumer expectations are they're higher than ever before. Whether, I think it was discussed earlier, whether it's technological advances or just changing consumer behavior, we expect more from the brands that we engage with. We know from all of our research that experiences really matter, and we expect more from those experiences. And we're seeing some of the biggest names in the industry that are really starting to look, okay, what made us successful in the beginning? How do we start to move forward? Just a few years ago, there were so many articles that were coming out around the death of the American mall, and who knew if it was going to be around, 10 years from now. And then you fast forward a couple years, and now visits to indoor malls are increasing, and that's very much thanks to the Gen Z generation, that they are kind of rediscovering what made the mall so special, this kind of mix of entertainment, retail, restaurant as well. And I think all of us, we're thinking, okay, well, what's next? It seems a little bit of like, what was right is wrong, what's wrong is right. And we're a bit at this inflection point of like, okay, well, how do we start to move forward? And, we've been talking internally about this idea of this and effect. And I'll explain that a little bit of, I feel like it was discussed a little bit, Glenn mentioned it this morning, this like, how do we embrace AI? And how do we also be more human as brands? And they're almost these like polar opposites that we're trying to all solve for. But what we think is interesting in this and moment is if we can solve for things that are at odds and find this kind of happy medium, I think that's really where some interesting innovation can happen. So we're going to explore some of those and trends in here, and we'll look at 3 different ones. Tons of examples, again, cross industries, so I will try to stay on time here. So the first one is that we expect for an experience to be for me and for my tribe. So this kind of me and we that's happening. We all know, there's this expectation for hyper-personalization. We want you to know me in the experience, recognize me. But there's also this, loneliness epidemic that's happening. So people are, wanting to be a part of something bigger, They want to connect to like-minded, individuals, and so how do we make sure that we're really delivering on this social, these social experiences that also feel like they're for me? Recently, I heard Ryan Reynolds speak, and he had this beautiful quote, and I was like, I'm going to use it. People want collective effervescence, and the idea behind that is like, it's your own vitality is almost amplified when you're around others. So how do we use these kind of social settings to really make something interesting? So there are a ton of examples. I actually think some of them that I didn't include, there's some digital native brands that are doing some interesting things. There's social clubs that are starting to pop up. Parlor Social Club is one of them where they're really connecting to you, but also using that as a platform to network with other individuals. But I still feel like from a experience, from like a retail, Nike House of Innovation is probably doing this best, better than anybody else. Everything, to have the true experience, everything is guided through that Nike app. And you have the ability to interact. They can make suggestions based on your purchase history. As you're working with experts, they're really honing in and giving you recommendations on your training, your running, but they're also connecting you to the brand. They're connecting you to the larger Nike community, and they're creating experiences that are about bringing people together, about moving together. So really interesting. I think probably their best example is the one that just opened up in Paris as well. Another example of this that we're seeing is in the wellness, and I think that's what a lot of industries are looking at, wellness, I'm sure in hospitality as well. And I saw just recently one of the biggest trends that we're seeing is for next year is social wellness. A great example, Othership is just landed, in New York. Is one of their first locations in the U.S. And they call it social self-care. So what that means is you can come in, you can have a more kind of self-guided experience, but what they're known for are these evening socials. And so it's, you're encouraged to interact, to have conversations with those that are next to you. And there's many other examples out here where we're taking it past, there's almost like an accountability, I feel like, in that. So, obviously as you're going to work out or you're going for a self-care moment, it's one thing if you go yourself, but when you start to open that up to a broader community, connect people together, that's another way to build that brand loyalty, to feel like you're a part of something and return time and time again. And then, oddly enough, we are even seeing it in the automotive industry. We have been working with Kia for a number of years, and we worked with them on their North American prototype, but then they were talking about an urban flagship and like, how can we think past just, the purchase and the service of your vehicle? And so this space is really thinking about, that urban customer and how they're using it past that purchase and service. So for instance, a Uber driver can come here, they can charge their vehicle, and then they can get access to Club Kia, where they can grab a drink, they can get something to eat. There's a restaurant as well that is really presenting almost the ethos of Kia as well. So really, we're seeing multiple industries think past just what they've been known for, and really start to connect to the communities that they're in, bring people together as well. Another trend that we're seeing, and I think this is one of my favorites because I think it goes across so many different industries, is we expect for experiences to be one of a kind. We want immersive experiences. I was talking to somebody earlier, but there's a cost associated with that as well. But then we also expect for it to be always changing, always new. We are a swipe right society where what we saw yesterday and we come back to visit again, we expect for it to be something different. So yeah, multi-sensory, new experiences. I think Jobs said it best when if you give people, what they want, by the time you get it built, they're going to want something new. It's just the reality that we live in, and we talk about internally like the 10-year prototype, probably even the 5-year prototype is dead, and we have to be thinking about how do we build spaces that can change over time and still deliver on that immersive experience. So one of my favorite examples, if you have not experienced it, is camp. They have this really great kind of blend of product and a play. So the retail space itself is not really changing out. They have the products that are there. They might change out depending on what's really changing, which is the experience. So 1 month it could be Bluey. Another time you're going back for an immersive experience into Little Mermaid. They do seasonal ones as well, so obviously Halloween's a big one for them. But what's interesting about this is they've thought about how do you renew that space each and every time and give people a reason to return, but also a memorable reason to return, because that's what we're in. We want to build loyalty, but we also want to build that return visit each and every time. And then rituals, I feel like this is like the adult version of camp. So they have what they call the Mind Oasis, and these are in the European market. So it has your more traditional retail space, but again, thinking about the wellness or even beauty and wellness and combining that together, creating new rituals. They have a space where you can relax, recharge, be in this more immersive experience, and again, give them a reason time and time again, not just to go purchase product, but to come back and have an experience as well. And then we're seeing it even in corporate design. So Panera has, we worked with them on their cafe experience, and then we started working with them on their headquarters in Boston. And not only creating flexible space, because I think we've heard that a lot, especially with hybrid working, but also connecting to their customer. And so each and every time they're kind of on the pulse of what's happening. So they have we put a social feed that's in their main cafe so they can experience in real time, like what are people saying about you, what are they saying about the new products that you're launching? And then in the space itself, how do we start to kind of blur the line between the culinary innovation studio, which many times is behind closed doors. They don't want you to see, they don't want the other departments to see what's happening. But it was an open environment where marketing, culinary, all of those could really collaborate together, see what's happening with each other. And I think that's going to be, we're going to see more and more of that, of how do we create flexible spaces that can blur over time and flex in different ways as well. And then the last trend that we are seeing, and I feel like I'm tired of talking about this one, is this idea of quick, easy, convenient, the dreaded word frictionless that I think we've heard time and time again. And I feel like with this one, we have almost leaned so far into that convenience. And this is where, like, looking at that opposite end, like, how do we really stop people in their tracks? How do we make something that is memorable in each of those moments? I'm actually surprised that it's not higher than 70%, because I think we all want things to be convenient. We all want them to be easy. But I think the stat on the right is actually what's really interesting. It's like very few people love brands, and I think it's getting harder and harder to build brand loyalty, as we all know. And so, I mean, that's really where we need to focus of every moment. How do you insert your brand, and how do you leave that kind of like stickiness? We always talk about this idea of like there is good friction, because I do think that like frictionless with contactless does equal experienceless. So finding the good friction, removing the bad friction is going to be, I think, really critical as we move forward. So Jimmy John's, it was funny, we were just talking about modular, so this is a modular design that we actually worked on with them, but what's important here is Jimmy John's as a brand. So how do we really bring the brand forward as we think about convenience and really distill that down? So they're known, if you know them, freaky fast, freaky fresh, freaky fast. And so when we worked with them, we really wanted to create a space that every inch of it was about delivering on that brand of freaky fast. So it almost becomes a billboard for drive-through, for pickup. It was a smaller menu, again, so they could continue to deliver on that freaky fast. And then, again, all four sides, even, delivering it to the site was about delivering it freaky fast, but through all the touch points, and then even as they started to, expand into other formats, still keeping that core of like, how do we deliver convenience, but still deliver on the brand as well. And then we see it in other formats. IKEA is actually doing some really interesting things. They have a number of different experiences, different prototypes that they're working on. One of their more successful ones are these plan and order points, or their planning studios, and they have, I think, another 4 that are planned for the US this year. And it's an example of, a big retailer. They're all known for the maze, their typical design, but this one is for an urban environment, and so it's really thinking about how can we take our brand essence, but deliver on the convenience of, our urban customer. And so they've replaced that warehouse, but kept the wow. So still delivering on inspiration, being really focused on that inspiration being about small spaces, so again, for the urban customer, and doing high touch, so bringing in like, a lot of human interaction, associates to work with you, rather than, relegating that to just the technology, but still delivering something that's, unique to IKEA, that feels like it fits within their brand, but also in a convenient way for their urban customer. And then we're seeing it, I think, all over, just in more of the apparel industry. Zara, I think, probably is doing the best job, especially from a technology. All their locations are really focused, especially on their flagships, of how do we deliver unparalleled merchandising experience, but then think about how we take out, again, some of that bad friction. So anything from, being able to reserve fitting rooms, everything is RFID chips, so as you walk in, it knows what you have, it can make suggestions based on what you're bringing into your fitting rooms. We're seeing Victoria's Secret's also starting to look at this. And then if you want to do self-checkout, doing it in a way, not the just walk out technology, but using the RFIDs that you can simply place it in there, make your purchase. They're even exploring self-returns as well, which I think is interesting. But what they're getting a lot of interest, and it's all over TikTok, is in the pickup space. So you can see videos of this, but it's all automated, and you can basically come in, scan your phone, and within seconds pick up your item, see the automation, the arm kind of coming out, and walk out. So doing the right balance, finding how we can take something that, again, checking out is never super exciting, fitting room experiences, and taking out like that bad friction, but still delivering on the brand, delivering on something that's interesting. Inditex, who owns them, they're working across all of their brands. They have Lefties, which is a lower tier brand, but how they can really do a digital transformation across all of them. So what does this mean for hospitality? I mean, these super high level, but I think, first and foremost, how do we continue to acknowledge me? And it's not just, in a check-in experience, but really, how do you use, the loyalty apps to really understand who I am, what I'm looking for in experience, make it feel catered to me, but then also connect me. And I think ultimately experiences are meant to be shared. So that's really critical, I think, in any experience that we have. The second one, like, what does a dynamic prototype really start to look like? How can we think about, you know, building for flexibility in the future and you know, rethinking what a 5-10-year prototype could be, but how can we think about that change ahead of time, because it is going to change. By the time, you know, 10 years down the road, there's so many other changes, so many advancements that are going to happen, but ultimately also give people a reason to return. Think about, you know, how do we get them to not just come once, but time and time again. And then last, you know, removing that bad friction. How do we build brand loyalty, brand love into everything? So using every single one of those moments to really build in your brand and think about what is unique to you and how do we deliver that to your guests. And I'm like right on time.
Beautiful. Love it. Jamie, everyone. Thank you, Jamie.